Why is it then when we can't pay our bills, when we suffer the downside effects of capitalism, we pay that price? But when big banks, big investors, and the wealthy, when they make bad investments, they always get bailed out. Why is there always socialism for them, but capitalism for us? Socialism and bailouts for them, capitalism and burdens for us.
I keep asking myself, what is it going to take for it to really sink in that we are in late stage capitalism? The signs are everywhere, and there are a lot of people that are finally waking up to this realization, but there is still so much more happening behind the scenes that people have no idea about. This particular executive order from this past summer, I've been following developments on it, and this has bothered me since I heard about it. This is Tiffany Cianci. She's a finance lady. I love finance ladies. I follow her on TikTok. I will put the link to the full video down below.
For the past several months, I have been warning everyone that the private equity industry was creating a massive bubble in our economy that was about to pop. Well, it just went, and right now they have sent all of their lobbyists to Washington, D.C. to beg the government for a bailout. And it's happening. Donald Trump and his administration are issuing an executive order that will take $12 trillion of your retirement savings, not taxpayer money, your money, and it will bail out not only the private equity industry, but their biggest investors. They're going to bail out Harvard and Yale and every billionaire investor private equity is about to grift. Let's get into it. That's right, everybody. Trump is set to issue an executive order that will open the floodgates and allow private equity funds to access and tap $12 trillion in 401k holdings in America. And the same people that control your 401ks have debt that is stuck with private equity right now, giving them poor returns and in desperate need of a capital infusion. No conflict of interest here, everybody. Just look the other way. Private equity is in big trouble. They need a bailout fast, and you are their only hope. But don't worry. Don't worry. It's going to be good for you. It's going to be the deal of a lifetime for you. That's right. Harvard and Yale, they're trying to sell their private equity funds and no one will buy them. But if you help buy them, you're going to get 1,000% windfalls. 1,000% windfalls in a day. Because definitely, if the wealthy had a chance to make 1,000% windfalls, they would absolutely be sharing it with you. They wouldn't keep it for themselves. They want everybody to be wealthy, obviously. So how did we get here? Well, over the last 30 years, private equity as a sector has been able to run roughshod over the entire American economy. They have strip mined every single industry with unmitigated access and absolute clearance by every single politician. They have paid to clear the runways and give them clear skies to do whatever they wanted to do to the American economy. They've destroyed jobs. They've destroyed companies. They've destroyed communities. But they did all of that with record low costs for debt. The interest was almost zero. One of the questions that I get all the time is, how does private equity make their money? If they destroy all these businesses, why do they still get so rich? And the reality is that what happens is that private equity makes their money on their fee structures. They don't make the money on the success of the companies they acquire. They can strip mine all of it. They can dispose of all the assets. They can leave rubble in what they've acquired because they make their money on the fees. Whereas a typical 401k, you would pay maybe 0.5% or like maybe 0.6% of your investment in fees. But with private equity, you pay 2% of the total amount you have invested annually, and you pay 20% of your returns. So just as an example, if you invested 50 grand with your 401k and it was just standard investments and you made $150,000, over 10 years, you would pay about $7,700 in fees to the management of that fund. But in private equity, you would pay $52,700 in fees over that same period of time, meaning that on average, you're going to give 60% of your returns just to the money managers at the private equity firms. And that's why they are so desperate for your 401ks. They need the capital, but they also need the fees, and they need you to pay them. Historically, the average holding period for any asset that private equity acquired was approximately 3 to 4 years. That means every 3 to 4 years, they would flip it to the next schmuck, they would stack it with more debt, and they would get out clean with all of their riches. But right now, they're having to hold for 6 to 7 years because nothing has been moving for the last 3 years at all. We've created a $3 trillion backlog in the industry with contracts that mandate that they have to get out and pay their investors with no hope of doing so. The last time that we had this kind of a backlog was just before the 2007-2008 housing collapse. Because they can't get any more capital from institutional investors, they are desperate for fresh sources of capital and dependent basically on securing those needs from us because there's nowhere left to obtain money. And Trump can't risk a public bailout. So instead, he's offering up this workaround that the 401ks and private equity have been desperately lobbying him for. He's going to give them access to your 401k money. And here's the thing, by opening up the 401k market, the system will be flooded with fresh capital. There's $12.2 trillion in the 401k market. And right now, private equity is about $3 to $4 trillion upside down. So there's certainly enough money there. But the decision making will be done by the same investors that manage your 401k. These are the same people that desperately need that money to clear up in the backlog of private equity because they're also invested there. These people don't care about you. They need your money and they're going to use it. And they're going to put the artificially inflated value on the books for you for the next 10 years. So you won't even know what's happened to your 401k until it's too late. And all of those companies have gone bankrupt and all of your money has gone to fees. You won't even know what hit you. You have to understand that the funds that you would be buying into are full of overvalued everything with so much debt and strip mined all the assets out already. So there's simply nothing left to get out of it. And that's why they're promising you 1,000% windfalls, telling you you're going to get the deal of a lifetime. You finally get to join the club. Well, as George Carlin said, baby, it's a big club and you ain't in it. If these returns were real, they'd be using them for themselves. They wouldn't be giving them to you. While they're going to pitch this as a democratization of the private equity system, finally opening the doors and letting you into the big boys club, what it really is a last-ditch effort for a liquid injection into a system that is so desperate for dry powder that because it's run out of institutional suckers. But there's a whole wide world of new suckers that they haven't even started to tap, and that's you. Everyday Americans have been locked out of this boom, right? For 30 years, they've made record profits, record money while destroying our communities. And now the situation is dire. Primary value has fallen. They're strip mined. The rich have gotten richer. And just like in 2008, it's now time to socialize the risk while they keep the upside with the privatized wealthy and no risk for them. And you will end up holding the bag 10 years from now when you look at your 401k and wonder what happened. Socialism and bailouts for them, capitalism and burdens for us. I just want to end by asking you, why is it then when we can't pay our bills, when we suffer the downside effects of capitalism, we pay that price? But when big banks, big investors, and the wealthy, when they make bad investments, they always get bailed out. Why is there always socialism for them, but capitalism for us? And why is it always capitalism that is the excuse when it becomes corrupted, right? Like we need to start demanding more. And I'm not advocating for socialism. I'm specifically advocating against it. If a company makes a bad investment, it should fail. If the wealthy make bad investments, they should go bankrupt. And we need to protect ourselves and our families.
What she said right there at the end reminds me of a quote that I heard not that long ago, that capitalism actually has failed our country many times, and socialism has saved it. Ironic, isn't it? I'm not advocating for socialism either. What I'm really talking about is social democracy, social programs. Those were brought into fruition from FDR, and that's how our country was saved from the robber barons running roughshod over the economy to make themselves rich. We are back here again with the same type of robber barons in the form of Musk and Thiel and Bezos, etc., etc. I also want to add here that these two terms keep getting conflated, democratic socialism and social democracy. Social democracy is, like I said, like the programs that we have, Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid, those things are social programs and they work within a capitalist system. This is the Nordic model. I've mentioned this before. That's what I'm talking about. That is what FDR did. And it worked, bitch. The middle class was thriving during that time. Until when? When who came along? Reagan came in, flipped all of that on its ear. Wages stagnated, the destruction of unions, the decline of the middle class. And here we are. That particular quote, if you really think about it, unregulated capitalism brings us to the brink of destruction. And then the socialism is for the rich. That happened in '08. The social programs that were implemented after the Great Depression brought us out of the hole that we were put into by the robber barons and those kind of policies that were reinstituted with Reagan. And it was a socialist framework in some form that saved us. The social programs. Now, after the Great Depression, that was FDR. And that is what the right wing is constantly calling the welfare state. But really, it was just a safety nets that were put in place for workers and for the citizens of the country. If you want to talk about '08, that was socialism for the rich. And that is what she is talking about. Those companies should have failed. There should have never been that situation of too big to fail. If they really want to put all of their chips on capitalism and the free market, then they should have failed. So yeah, as she said, socialism for them, capitalism and burden for us. But I'm getting off topic because this particular video is about Tiffany's video that she recorded in the summer. You saw that I posted it on there. That video was from July of 2025. So on August 7th, Trump signed that executive order, and it is called Democratizing Access to Alternative Assets for 401k Investors. That sounds really nice, right? Like you're really like being let in on a deal. White House and Wall Street advocates are claiming this will let regular workers get the same high returns that wealthy institutional investors already enjoy. As Tiffany said, if these high returns were really true, they would keep them for themselves. Why would they pass them on to anybody else? There is no historical precedent for that at all. They always keep everything for themselves. That's why trickle down has failed. It never worked. You could stop with that lie already. Where we are right now, the order is not in effect yet. It just has opened the door. There hasn't been any changes yet to implement private equity as an option for 401k plans, but now it does allow the regulators to start the rulemaking process. Previous administrations did not allow for these high-risk plans to be put into place for private equity to be able to gain access to Americans' retirement savings. Especially under Biden, this was not allowed at all. And that administration, even though it had faults in terms of protecting consumers and the citizens, they were in the process of implementing some significant changes in that regard. Just one of the many things that infuriates me about the misinformation that was spread about the Biden administration. Here's a recent article parsing through all of this. And like I said, they are trying to sell it as this being very beneficial for workers and people's retirement funds to be able to have access to these high-risk investments. The executive order marks a decisive shift in retirement policy, directing regulators to ease restrictions on alternative assets in 401ks, potentially opening to everyday savers exotic assets, including private equity, private credit, real estate, and digital asset vehicles. This policy guidance could reshape both product design and capital flows, prompting asset managers to create retirement-compatible private market vehicles while raising concerns about liquidity, opaque valuation practices, high fees, what Tiffany was talking about in her presentation, and the suitability of such assets for participants nearing retirement. The long-term ramifications hinge on regulatory execution. Done well, the shift could democratize access to higher growth markets and redirect capital toward productive investments. Done poorly, it could introduce new systemic risks and undermine the safeguards that underpin the U.S. retirement system. This article came out in September, but the sentiment is absolutely true. More workers may lose their hard-won retirement savings now that Trump has pushed them toward crypto and private equity. And this is the kind of stuff that infuriates me. While we're busy arguing about things that are way less consequential, this stuff is happening behind the scenes. And the misinformation that surrounds these policies and why they're executing them adds to the muck. Even though this hasn't been implemented yet, there are plans to do so. And this is a very big deal for the regulatory environment. Wall Street firms are gearing up now as we speak, and your retirement savings, they're just going to be another big capital pool for private markets. I mean, really? Like I said in the beginning of this video, what is it going to take? How far is this going to go? Unfortunately, it seems like it has to go pretty far. But I believe at some point, things are going to snap because this is not sustainable. My name is Lisa. I just started this channel. I would love for you to subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comments. All of my information is in the description box as well. I am very active on Substack. I do a lot of live streams with panel discussions, and I would love it if you subscribe there too. Let's spread the word on this because this is extremely important. And with a lot of this stuff, I feel like not enough people know about it. Not enough people are talking about it. So let's go.